With the massive power shift in the country's biggest metros, a specific kind of leadership is required, one that will unite the council while also ensuring that service delivery is not affected by petty squabbles. We're joined by Professor Mazwe Majola, a leadership expert, to give us some insight on this. Professor, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, some significant council losses for the ANC yesterday, I must say, but one could say we are witnessing a power shift, as you say, away from the ANC. But the question remains, who now holds the power?
Yes, that's $1 million question, because the question is, when you look at these political parties like Action SA and EFF that have supported DA, they've been vocal about expressing their enemy number one. We all know that it's not that they supported DA because they love DA. They supported DA because they hate ANC. So it was more about identifying the enemy number one, which happened to be the ANC. The question now, who's going to be the next enemy? Is it possible that DA may become the next enemy of Action SA and EFF? Is it possible that these political parties may coalesce and unite and work together and identify corruption as the enemy number 2 or 3, and the lack of service delivery as the next enemy, rather than fighting among themselves? So that's a big question,
Professor. That is very disturbing if enemy number 1 is a politician or a political party, because enemy number 1 should be service delivery or rooting out corruption. But if we're here and they're sourcing for the next enemy, certainly we're at a disadvantage in that case.
I'm afraid so, and I really see, and I still foresee this toxic and tumultuous relationship between these political organizations, because I don't think they've matured enough to be able to transcend their hatred and egos and their anger and pride,
And call it as it is, Professor, because I know many are using the term that this will be a fragile government. But really, that's just euphemism at its best. It really is toxic. It was toxic over the weekend. I cannot, just like you, see how all of a sudden we would have these political parties seeing eye to eye. It really does look like a very difficult time ahead.
There's no way that Herman Mashaba, who has been so aggrieved and so disappointed by the actions of DA, that all of a sudden he will be the friend of DA. Whatever they've done yesterday and today in terms of removing ANC, it was more, about expressing their hatred towards ANC. But now they're going to turn towards DA. So the question is, will DA be a leader enough to handle that toxicity and to be able to pull these political organizations together? Will DA be able to drop its egoistic tendencies that it does happen, or its bullying stance that sometimes it does have, and accommodate these different political organizations and pull them together and say, let's work together? Or DA would say, look, we are in power now, you can't tell us what to do, even though they know that they're in a minority and they need EFF, they need Action SA and other smaller political organizations when they vote for their budgets, for their plans, for all the. So they will need each other. But the question is, can they, or will they put people first before their self-interest?
That is honestly the pertinent question. But listening to John Steenhuisen a bit earlier, he maintains that the EFF voted against the ANC and not necessarily in support of the DA, the same thing that you mentioned. But if we're talking of a leadership that seeks to unite, is that really the posture that a leader should take right now? Because for the ordinary man, it says, no, let's just be frank, I don't owe you. You had your own agenda with the ANC, so it had nothing to do with us. So is that the type of leadership that is needed if stability is at the heart of what they want to achieve?
The most important thing in leadership is the leader. And this is where now leaders must emerge. You know, we want to see good leaders now. We want to see great leaders now. Leaders who will transcend differences, who will go beyond these turmoils. Leaders who will pull people together, who will set the tone, who will define direction, who will inspire people, who will influence things. We need transformational leaders who will make things to happen, who will get things done instead of being instead of procrastinating. We need proactive leaders now instead of reactive leaders. You know, so people like Dr. Mpho Phalatse and others, it's when now we expect them to show up their leadership, you know. So because now it's when it's no more about policies, it's no more about campaigning, it's no more about talking policies and plans and all. It's now about execution. It's about service delivery. It's when the leader shows its leadership acumen, and that is when now it's what will separate boys from men. It's what will separate goats from sheep. It's what will separate great leaders from mediocre, to see that will these people, now that they've been given and afforded this opportunity, can they take it and can they use it to leave legacy, so that whatever differences, can they form this coalition, this collaboration, these relationships, and put aside all these differences.
Now, speaking of Dr. Phalatse, what should be a priority for her now? Because we know the issues in Johannesburg. We've got aging infrastructure, road network issue, inner city crime is at an all-time high. What should be a priority at this point?
Well, look now, Dr. Mpho Phalatse now must walk the talk. She must mean what she says and says what she means. You know, she must be consistent, and then she must just show people that, look, I'm here now. I'm not a mistake. I'm not a compromise. You know, I'm here as a leader. It happened that I'm elected, and I'm going to serve you, citizens of Johannesburg. And we know, as we have mentioned, all those needs and things that are needed in Johannesburg. Now she must just show these people that she is results-oriented, she's action-oriented. She must now translate the vision into reality. People, they've had enough of policies. They've had enough of plans, of principles, of all. Those things are very important in leadership. But now it goes down, or it comes down to execution. It comes down to implementation, to action. That's what people want to see. And then if she can do that, obviously she will win the people's hearts.
Well, we wish her luck. Perhaps having a woman there might see something different. But thank you very, very, very much, Professor Mazwe Majola, the leadership expert, talking to us on the developments in Johannesburg.